Hey guys, Jim here. Wanted to do a little follow-up video on my Greg Lightfoot Full Contact Fighter flipper. About 3 or so months after I first received it, kind of a long-term report on the quality, how I feel about it now that I've had it for a few months, now that I've carried it for a few months, and see if if what I got justifies the amount of money I spent, and maybe it'll help you decide which way you want to go. Before you watch this, though, please do watch the full review that I did on this knife when I first got it. It's going to give you all the information that you need about blade steel and sizes and all that kind of good stuff. I'm not going to go back over that because it's just redundant at this point. I do want to talk about a few things. Some of the things that I talked about in the video, one of which was the ergonomics. I love how your hand falls into this knife. I mean, it's grooved here, it's grooved here. It's almost like having, I guess you can still call them choils if you want. I just usually save that term for when it's notched out of the blade. It feels great, and as a fighting knife, that's great because it locks you in here, here, and here. The knife isn't going to go anywhere. It really does feel secure. So the ergos, as far as that goes, feels great. The shape of the spine of the handles feels great because it feels natural into the contours of your hand. I think he did a fantastic job there. The issues, however, still remain about those sharp areas. Sharp here, all of the edges, in particular here and here, and then back here. I mean, these are actually, I don't know if you can effectively see how sharp that edge really is, those corners, but they are. And this digs into your side, especially for me when I'm riding the motorcycle. My legs hiked up a little bit more than it would be, sitting in a chair or on my couch or whatnot. And it pushes the knife up a little bit and pushes it into my side. And that is bothersome. It's so bothersome, as a matter of fact, that I've considered selling this knife because of it. And there are other people that will have less issues with that than I will. But I just can't seem to bring myself to sell it because of the overall quality and really the beauty of this knife. I mean, I love this blue twill mixed with carbon fiber. It looks remarkable. It really does. And the one effect that I can't get here that's, I can't duplicate what happens in natural sunlight. I have a softbox set up here, so the lights are being diffused, so you're not getting direct light on here, but it does shimmer when the light hits it just right, and it looks really, really cool in the sunlight. The operation is great. As a matter of fact, it got so smooth that I actually have to be careful because once I pass that detent block right there, the blade simply just falls on its own. It is the smoothest overall operation that I've got. And now that looks like it's a loose pivot, but it's not. I assure you that blade is in there at all steps, nice and tight, no wiggles. That pivot is not loose. And I know that because the other gripe that I have is that after just a short amount of time owning this knife, the pivot loosened. And I mean loosened bad, like I didn't realize it till I was already at work and didn't have any tools with me. And I'm flipping the knife as I tend to do at work, using it on the show. And unfortunately, the blade started rubbing on the inside of the scales. Now, from what I can tell, I don't have any marks on the steel. I'll see it better in this HD video when I upload it, and I'll know for sure. But I don't see any, and that would be a sin because of how beautiful this blade is. It really is a sexy ass blade, and I would hate to have it, rebrushed because of that. So I got back home, and it was a very easy tweak. The very next day, it got loose again. So I went ahead and took the pivot screw out, put a drop of Loctite in there, and that's when I was surprised to discover that shipping a premium knife of this price range, Greg Lightfoot didn't even bother to put Loctite on his pivot. It's going to loosen. Any screw at a mechanical fulcrum like this is going to loosen the way these are manufactured, especially when it's on a flipper. And guys really are, they're playing with them, they're flipping, and this thing has probably been flipped a million times. So it's going to loosen very, very, very quickly. So once I put the Loctite in there, as should have been done when it was manufactured, it works great. I haven't had it loosen up yet. It stayed rock solid. It's at the exact right tension. The blade is perfectly centered as it was when I first received it. And operationally, this knife is fantastic. Again, my only gripes are those super ridiculously sharp areas. And I really think that I could send this knife to someone like, Tough Thumbs or Will Moon or somebody that could contour this very quickly and very easily. But then I have to wonder, how is that going to affect maybe its possible value in the future? I don't buy knives with the intent of them, going up in value and them being worth any more money. However, you don't want to do anything purposefully to devalue any of your purchases, whether it be a knife or jewelry or whatever. You don't want to do anything that's going to devalue it. And I think having another knife maker touching this and doing something that Greg Lightfoot doesn't offer, I think might hurt its resale value in the future should I ever decide to sell it. And I really am on the fence. It's one of those things where when I think about it, I go, yeah, the money I get from that, I could buy another Grail that I have. Like right now, I've got a serious hard-on for Shirogorov. I really want to get a Shirogorov. And this would pretty much pay for a Shirogorov. But every time I whip it out and I look at it, I fall in love all over again. That's what she said. But no, seriously, every time I pull this out of the case and I stare at it and I hold it in my hand and I feel that, I go, well, damn, I really don't want to get rid of that. And honestly, trying to replace it would be difficult. It's not easy to get a Greg Lightfoot these days. It just isn't. Even if you're going into the, the big knife shows, by the time you finally make it to his table, they're going to be gone. That's just the way it is. So I kind of look at it as I really need to hold on to it and decide what I'm going to do with it. Let's talk about the sharpness, because that's the other thing that hasn't really wowed me. I'm just going to grab this sitting here from my wife's gift wrapping kit. It really doesn't want to cut through shit. And if you're thinking, well, this raggedy string here probably wouldn't be very easy to cut anyway. Let me grab something else here. Oh, what do I think would be pretty sharp? Oh, duh, my Una. I could take this. Okay, that was completely effortless. And you saw me tugging like a bastard on the Lightfoot. One that should very simply and easily do it. The Rockstead. Again. No problem there. Something that may be a little bit more utilitarian, perhaps, not known for being exotic or insanely sharp, because we know the Rocksteads have a legendary status for that. That may have been a bit unfair. And everybody knows Yoon's blades are just sick, insane, crazy sharp. So let's be a little bit more fair. Let's see how about this? Jason Browse Division Flipper. Now this is my prototype, but it's still ground the same way. This is what, $400 knife? Yeah, so in my opinion, for the money spent on this knife, it really should, get all the green fuzz out of here, sorry about that. It really should be a little bit sharper out of the box, in my personal opinion. And it was a tad sharper when I first got it, and it's only had very light cutting tasks, and I guess it just hasn't held the edge very well. Now, normally that wouldn't be the biggest deal, because you're like, oh, Jimborino, just strop it. Yeah, well, it's a recurve, and recurves are not the easiest to strop or sharpen. Can it be done? Yeah. It just takes a particular degree of concentration, and I sometimes don't concentrate well. So overall, am I glad I bought it? Yes, I think it's a wonderful knife. It's a wonderful experience to own this knife. Is it worth the money spent? You know, everybody's going to feel differently about that. If I look at it through the collector's eye, from the viewpoint or the standpoint, I should say, of collectability, scarcity, rarity, yes, it was worth the money I invested because of its rarity, because of its scarcity. And I do believe that I could probably even make a couple dollars off of it if I sold it. Not that I'm really into that. Oh, I mean, I'm not above that. I'm not saying if somebody, you know, wanted to pay the money that I wouldn't do it. I just don't actively go out and try to, you know, make a lot of extra money on a purchase or on a sale, I should say. So I think from that standpoint, yes, it was worth it. For someone who wants to be a collector slash user, maybe, I don't know, maybe not, because of those sharp edges, you're less likely to carry it. Because of the fact that it's not tremendously sharp, you may go, well, it may not cut the things I want it to cut as easily as I think it should cut it. So on that day, I'm just going to carry something like this that I know will. So now, was that worth the money when you're having to bypass it every time you think about carrying it? Well, that's something that you have to consider for yourself. I look at it as I'm kind of on the fence. I love the knife. I think it is almost magical in its beauty. And that sounds really, really stupid, but you know, I love knives that much. I think it is a wonderfully beautiful piece of cutlery. I just don't think it's as perfect as many of the other knives that I've been able to add to my collection. If somebody said you had to, you know, get rid of this or get rid of your Rockstead, this would be gone in a heartbeat. This or your unit, this would be gone in a heartbeat. This or your Direware, this would be gone in a heartbeat. You know, so if I make direct comparisons like that, it makes it a lot more difficult. Something that's a little bit lesser, like, oh, it's this or your Hinderer, I would keep this because I can replace the Hinderer. Hinderers, you know, forgive me for saying so, but they're a dime a dozen. That doesn't take away from the fact that it's a great knife. Don't misunderstand me. But they're a hell of a lot easier to come by than a Greg Lightfoot, and specifically this particular combination of a full contact fighter. That's all I'm saying. Something, you know, if somebody said it's between that and, you know, your one-off stuff like you know, my F3, well, this is a one-off. I could never replace this. There's no way I would make that decision. I would certainly be keeping the Curtis. You know, and when you really break them down, they're the same basic size, they're the same basic operation, being a flipper. They're meant for more EDC tasks than a, you know, more flat out, full out custom with crazy, ridiculous components. I would rather have this in my pocket every day. It's more comfortable. Everything is rounded. Everything is contoured, beveled edges. It's made for comfort. It's lighter weight. It's got a sharper blade. There are a lot of things where this excels that this falls short. Now, you know, beauty is subjective. I honestly think this is one of the most beautiful knives in my own collection. But you can't argue the beauty of this. Even if you're the kind of person that's not really into carbon fiber, or you're not really into, I don't know, the color blue. A lot of you are still going to look at it and go, yeah, but Jim, that's a lot more beautiful. This looks a little bit more utilitarian, whereas that looks a lot more beautiful. And you know what? I can't deny that. There is a certain aesthetic elegance to this knife, and especially with that grind. I love the grind on this blade. He did such a beautiful job, and for some reason it's sharper up here than it is back here. But you know, if you go to make those kind of choices, I think that's what helps you decide, is something a keeper or not. So for right now, at least, this is still going to be a keeper in my collection, and I'm either going to grow to love it with the flaws that it has, you know, and I do love it. I don't want to say that I don't, but grow to love it where I'm not going to bother thinking about the flaws anymore. Or should I find some way to, you know, eliminate those flaws? Get rid of that sharpness back here so when I flip it over and over, my finger isn't sore. Get rid of the sharpness so that it isn't tearing up my finger here when I'm holding it. Get rid of the sharpness here and back here. Yeah, I think that could easily be achieved. I just don't want to have to put more money into an already pretty expensive knife. So there it is, a little bit more long-winded than I expected, but you guys are used to that from me. I just try to be as honest as I possibly can. You know, you can't love everything. Even the things that you have purchased, that you've made room for in your own collection. You can't love everything. There's gonna be some pros and cons to most of the things that you have. And, you know, sometimes we do still keep those flawed beauties in our collection because there's something else about them that makes them special. This has that intangible thing that keeps me in love with it. So that's about it for right now. I will try to do some more follow-ups with other knives that I have and let you guys know how I feel about those after having them for some time. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below.